The by-election result in Strangra is the sort of political curiosity that excites party headquarters for more than it shifts the national compass. The Scottish Conservatives have every right to celebrate a win, particularly one secured by a mere 42 votes on the 7th round of an STV count. But the significance of the victory lies less in its immediate arithmetic and more in what it reveals about a fragmented Scottish landscape and the limits of Reform UK's advance. It does not, however, offer any meaningful respite to the Conservative Party still moving downwards in both Scotland and in the wider UK. First, the arithmetic is brutally clear. Reform UK won the first preferences. John Roberts topped the poll with 1,386 votes to Julie Curry's 1,302. In any Westminster race, that would have been the end of it. But under STV, Reform proved brittle. They hemorrhaged second and third preferences, especially from Labour and independent voters, allowing the Conservatives to crawl past them at the final stage. That is the key strategic lesson. Reform can surge from a standing start, but it has yet to build the breadth of acceptability required in Scotland's preferential voting system. The anger vote coalesces around Reform, but the transfer vote does not. Secondly, the Conservatives will present this as evidence that they remain the only credible anti-SNP force across large swathes of Scotland. Russell Finlay's rhetoric was predictable but effective. Rising local bills, decaying roads, the A75 and the A77 left as monuments to SNP inertia and a sense of public exhaustion, with two governments taxing more and delivering less. In the local context, this message clearly resonated, but Stranra is a Conservative SNP battleground where Labour is marginal and Reform is new. Translating that narrow success into a revived national vote is another matter entirely. Third, the structural reality remains uncomfortable for the Conservatives. Polling for Holyrood has them languishing. Reform extraordinarily is projected to win nearly 20 SNPs next May, and the by-election therefore highlights an irony. Even where Reform fail, they still demonstrate their threat. They force the Scottish Conservatives into a knife-edge contest in a region where the Conservative vote used to be deep and dependable. That is not a sign of renewal, it's a sign of ongoing fragmentation. Fourth, Reform UK will be simultaneously disappointed and encouraged. Disappointed because they came within 42 votes of their first Scottish win. Encouraged because they topped the poll outright at first preference, proving that their message lands even in a rural area that has never been instinctively sympathetic to them. In a Westminster context, a 1,386 to 1,302 lead would have produced a clean Reform victory. The by-election therefore confirms Reform's most important strategic message. The Conservatives are now vulnerable everywhere, even in once safe corners of Scotland. Fifth, the wider Westminster implications are limited. No serious analyst will claim that a Dumfries and Galloway council seat presages a Conservative victory, a Conservative recovery. The national trend is still regressively negative for the Tories. They are losing votes at two fronts at once: to Labour among moderate centre-right professionals, to Reform among older, angrier, more anti-establishment groups. A single local win under STV cannot disguise this, nor can it obscure the larger reality that in a straight Westminster election, Reform would have taken that seat. Sixth, the contest underscores the bizarre duality of Scottish politics. While the UK Conservatives face near extinction in England and Wales, the Scottish Conservatives can still appear competitive because the electoral map is distorted by the independence question. Their vote is effectively a constitutional vote. In parts of Scotland, the Conservatives survive not because they are loved, but because they are seen as the only instrument available to restrain the SNP. That means their resilience is functional rather than ideological, and as a long-term foundation, it's weak. Seventh, the by-election also hints at the volatility of next year's Holyrood contest. If Reform's first preference strength continues, they will distort the electoral map in ways that injure the Conservatives more than the SNP or Labour. Indeed, Reform's rise may entrench SNP dominance indirectly by splitting the anti-independence vote. The Conservatives may have beaten Reform in Strangra, but they cannot do so 129 times next May. Finally, the symbolism of the victory is far greater for the Conservatives than its substance. It gives Russell Findlay a talking point, a press line, a morale boost, but it doesn't reverse any trend. It doesn't slow Reform's advance. It doesn't pull the Conservatives out of their downward curve. It merely demonstrates that under a preferential voting system, the Conservatives can still survive when enough voters turn to them reluctantly as the least objectionable option. In short, a tight local win is welcome for the Conservatives, but it masks nothing. Reform's first preference lead is the more important indicator of the mood, and the Conservatives remain structurally weakened and nationally adrift. The trajectory for the party, even after this victory, is still downwards. This by-election offers the Conservatives a photograph for their Facebook page, not a path back to political relevance.